So apparently, according to Professor Jiang, which is, I don't know, I think he teaches at a high school or something like that, and he has videos about geopolitics and history. I did watch a few of them. They are actually quite good, but I didn't watch all of them, and I don't really know what he thinks when it comes to money and economics. But I found this very interesting clip with him and Sneeko talking about Bitcoin. So let's watch it first, and then we can get into the details of what he claims about Bitcoin. So let's watch.
People were really trying to see. I haven't seen yet your lecture about crypto. And now that the Epstein files have been released, they're saying that Bitcoin is part of a greater conspiracy and is also controlled by the Rothschild. Oh, no, don't nod. Is that true?
Yes. Yes, that is correct. Yes. Yes. It is a national security strategy to. So look at the Bitcoin, okay? And the idea of Bitcoin is that it is an open ledger where you can secretly conduct all interactions, right?
Well, actually, that's not quite true. The public ledger of Bitcoin is not secret. You can actually see every transaction. That's why it's public, okay? So you can actually see every transaction on the public ledger of Bitcoin. And it's not secret. In fact, if you are a criminal, the last thing you want to do is to pay with Bitcoin. And especially now that most people buy Bitcoin from KYC exchanges and KYC platform, it's very difficult to actually spend your Bitcoin on something illegal because you will definitely be tracked and they can definitely find you. So you can't really conduct secret transactions with Bitcoin unless you get non-KYC Bitcoin, in which case it's also possible to be tracked. And those transactions are not secret. They are public on the public ledger. They can be seen. Maybe you can't identify who conducted those transactions, but the transactions are public. And the fact that the transactions are public means you can be tracked if you are a criminal and if you spend your Bitcoin on criminal cases. In fact, that's what happened with Mt. Gox. Not Mt. Gox. That's what happened with what's it called? The Silk Road websites. The Silk Road websites, there were some things that were being sold on the website that are illegal, and they managed to actually capture some of the people that were selling drugs and selling some illegal stuff on that website. There is this book that I read that talks about the history of Bitcoin called, I think it's called Digital Gold. I forgot the name, but I have it here on Audible. Maybe I will check it. So in this book, he actually explains and he tells the story of Bitcoin from the beginning. He talks about this episode with the Silk Road, website and how they actually caught not just the owner but some of the people that were using it to sell drugs. Okay, I can't. I found it. Okay, so here, yes, it's called Digital Gold by Nathaniel Popper. So Digital Gold by Nathaniel Popper. It's a very good book that talks about the history of Bitcoin. Pretty much goes through everything. So you can give it a listen or you can read it. But yeah, this point that Professor Giant says about Bitcoin being a secret or conducting secret transactions, no, it's not. They are not secret. They are out in the open. Anyone can actually see them.
And so what? So why Bitcoin is valuable is, first of all, it's a store of value. It's a store of wealth because it's rare. The second is that it is uh, anonymous, right? So like you're a drug dealer and you can use Bitcoin, right?
So, like I've said, it's not totally anonymous, okay? It's not totally anonymous. You can be tracked. There are a lot of loopholes. So, if you are a criminal, the last thing you wanna use is actually Bitcoin, okay? That's why they say cash is king. I mean, criminals use cash all the time, and the dollar is actually used for criminal activities way more than Bitcoin.
So who does this benefit? It benefits the CIA because CIA is the most notorious drug trafficker and human trafficker in the world, and so it allows them to conduct all these operations secretly. It also allows them to spy on rogue regimes like North Korea and the Iranians in order to access more information.
I don't know how can the CIA spy on North Korea using Bitcoin. The only thing they can do, like I've said, is to see the transactions. That's the only thing they can do. In fact, Bitcoin is used by by anyone who has been shunned out from the international financial system. It's like what happened when the sanctions hit Russia and they were banned from the SWIFT system. So they had to use alternative methods to conduct international transactions.
It makes perfect sense for the CIA to create this sort of thing. The other thing you need to ask is like, what's the capacity to create this thing, right? Because it can't be this random guy working in his basement for a number of years. Because why won't he take credit? Why won't he monetize this, right? So the agency in the United States that is very good at creating things like the internet, GPS, is DARPA, which is the think tank of the Pentagon, right? So it could be NSA, it could be CIA, it could be DARPA, like who knows? But it's deep state.
This one I actually agree. I do think that it's highly likely this Bitcoin was created by the CIA or by some sort of intelligence agency. But the fact that it was created, it was started by an intelligence agency, doesn't mean that they still have control over it, because it's open source, it's it's a public ledger, it's auditable, it's it's a network of independent node runners and miners from different jurisdictions. So even if the CIA or even if any intelligence agency created Bitcoin, that doesn't mean that they still have control over it, because it's decentralized. And if you want to make any change to the rules, you need broad consensus, okay? So if you need to change any rule of the Bitcoin network, of the Bitcoin, whether it's the monetary side or the other aspects of Bitcoin, you need broad consensus of every node runner, okay? So maybe the CIA created Bitcoin, maybe Satoshi Nakamoto is a deep state, but that doesn't mean that the deep state still has control over Bitcoin.
If you just go into the history of Bitcoin, it's very suspicious.
So who do you think is the founder of Bitcoin? It's still anonymous, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't know the individual, but it's probably NSA, CIA, DARPA, yeah.
So, Professor Jim, what am I supposed
And by the way, SHA-256 was created by the NSA and it's used in Bitcoin. So, but again, that doesn't mean that they still control it, okay? That's just a technology that is used in the Bitcoin protocol.
to invest my money in? Where could I, where do I put the wealth that I've acquired? So if fiat currency is controlled by the Federal Reserve, if it's controlled by the Rothschild central banking system, it's not actually real. Bitcoin, as you're saying, is controlled by the CIA. If I buy real estate, it's going to be in America, which is a failing empire. If I buy, is it just gold? Is that the best?
Yeah, but then the question is like, where do you store this gold, right? And what do you use gold for? Yeah, you can have a lot of gold, but when the world goes to shit, right? I mean, like what's gold going to get you, right?
Well, I mean, in these doomsday scenarios, if the world goes to shit, it's not gold, not Bitcoin, not silver, nothing's gonna help you, okay? Nothing's gonna help you if the world goes to shit. If you have gold, you can't access it. If you have Bitcoin, maybe you can't access it. Everything's gonna go to shit. So when we say Bitcoin, we are talking about a scenario where the world doesn't go to shit, but maybe your country goes to shit. Or maybe your government goes to shit and your government imposes some kind of capital control or any of these very restrictive policies, and then Bitcoin is your way to actually protect your wealth and to protect your assets if you want to leave, if you want to travel or whatever. And that's not to mention that even if the world doesn't go to shit, Bitcoin still helps you and still protects your wealth against inflation, against this inflationary system that inflates the money supply by at least 7% a year, which literally robs you of your wealth every waking hour of the day. So Bitcoin is good, okay? Bitcoin is good in the current system. Like in this fiat system, Bitcoin is the best way to protect your wealth and to invest your money in. Gold, well, like I've said, gold was the best thing before Bitcoin, but now, like he said, where are you going to store the gold? It's absolutely illegal to store a big amount of gold. And if you want to buy like big amounts of gold, you actually have to trust a third party. So you need to buy it through an ETF or something like that. And when you do that, you don't really own the gold. You just own the claim of gold. But when you buy Bitcoin in self-custody, you actually own the Bitcoin, and nobody can stop you from using it in however way you want. If the world doesn't go to shit. If the world goes to shit, well, everything goes to shit.
Right. So okay. Um, here's my theory. So there's something called the Allegory of the Cave by Plato. In the Allegory of the Cave, everyone is chained to the floor, right? And the neck is shackled, so you can't move around. You're just staring at a wall. Behind everyone is a fire. And then there are people, the power elite, that have puppets. And they project these puppets onto the wall. And so you're seeing a shadow world, okay? Like it's a movie projector. And people, because they don't know any other reality, they think that the shadow reality is the real reality, and they give it names. They imagine it to be true. Because they imagine it to be true, then it becomes true. And that's a perfect metaphor to describe the financial system that we live in today, right? Money, wealth, it's an illusion. It doesn't. I mean, it's just literally paper. But
I would say that fiat money is an illusion, okay? Fiat money is an illusion, and everybody subscribes to this illusion, which makes it kind of real. Because, I mean, yes, you might say money is an illusion, you might say the dollar is an illusion, or any other currency, but if you go to that country and you don't use the currency that they use as legal tender, then you are not going to be able to buy anything. So illusion is part of the system, and you just have to subscribe to the illusion as well if you want to function, if you want to buy food, if you want to have shelter and water and everything. So you gotta use the illusion. You have no escape from that.
we imagine it to be true, and it focuses our attention, and we want more of it. And what we don't recognize is that what true wealth is our imagination. What true wealth is our connection with each other. Because we get to
Well, I would say imagination, it can be the source of wealth, but it's not true wealth. You can't buy food with imagination. If you go to a grocery store and you ask them for something and then you tell them, okay, I have like $5 of imagination, can I get this bottle of water? Of course, they're not going to give you money. So I believe that imagination can be weaponized to create wealth. Okay, like all the movies, all the video games, all the stories that people sell for money, they come from imagination. And so that imagination can be leveraged to create wealth, but it is not wealth per se.
together, we can imagine anything that we want. We put inside that we want. Okay. So you think that your wealth is in these millions of dollars that you've made, like doing live streaming. No, it's not. The true wealth that you have is your imagination, your knowledge that you've accumulated over years of study. Your true wealth is in your influence. Your true wealth is in the community that you built online, and that will carry you anywhere you go in the world. Okay, if there's a new world, guess what? If there's no internet, guess what? You do lectures, you go teach, you go write stories, right? That's your true wealth. Right. Okay?
Well, that is partly true. That is partly true. If you have stories, if you have the ability to engage people, to talk to them and everything, to lecture, to teach, of course you can create wealth depending on your circumstances. But to say that money is not wealth, that's completely wrong, completely, I would say, delusional. If you have money, you can actually scale your operation. The fact that Sneeko can use these social media platforms and can use Kick to talk to hundreds of thousands of people is different from going to like some neighborhood and trying to teach people. Who's gonna listen to you? Like, you have no credibility, you have no authority. And the internet, all these imaginary things like the internet and the imaginary money, you can use it to actually create to build your reputation online, to be able to reach people and then influence them and then make money off of that. So I do respect Professor Jiang. I think he is a very smart individual. I like to watch some of his lectures, but I think he is wrong about Bitcoin. I do think that Bitcoin probably was created by an intelligence agency, perhaps the CIA, I don't know. But that does not mean that Bitcoin is controlled by an intelligence agency. Maybe they are trying to control it now. They are trying to push to increase the size of up return, to bloat the blockchain and therefore compromise decentralization and then take over it. Maybe that is the case, but Bitcoin is still decentralized. The social layer is the most important layer. That's why we have to speak up about Bitcoin. That's why we have to educate people about Bitcoin. And that's why I make videos about Bitcoin. And true wealth is indeed not in the material thing completely. You do need money. You do need you need to subscribe to the illusion that everybody subscribes to in order to have any chance at getting what you want. But true wealth or influence comes from the skills that you acquire and from the money that you make off of those skills. So skills, influence, those are tools by which you get the money, by which you get the wealth. But they are not wealth themselves, because if you go somewhere where those skills or that influence is not appreciated and is not valued, then it means nothing. But if you take your Bitcoin, or if you take your gold, or if you take your money, and okay, let's stick to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an international neutral asset that you can exchange for any other currency, okay, in the current system. So if you take your Bitcoin and you go to another country, you can still get the legal tender of that country. But you can't take gold through the airport. You can't take a large amount of gold because it's heavy. And so Bitcoin still is the best asset you can own in 2026. If the world goes to shit, as he says, then everything goes to shit. You can't really use anything and you are fucked either way. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Bitcoin and its relation to the CIA. I think Professor Jiang is partly right and partly wrong. He starts off right. Perhaps Bitcoin was created by the CIA, but that does not mean that they are still that they are in charge of it right now. And true wealth is actually the money you own, or the assets that you own, and how anti-fragile the asset that you own is, and how much permission you have over the assets, because Bitcoin is permissionless. You can send it and receive it without the permission of anybody. That's not the case with fiat currency or even gold. And of course, your skills, your influence, they help you to acquire more Bitcoin. They help you to acquire more of the material things that you need to survive and thrive. So yeah, let me guys know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on X, and see you in the next one. Take care.